I've been teaching classes. We're going to start recording so that you're here for home computer network basics, right? That's the class we're all ready to go with, okay? And it doesn't matter whether you know a lot or a little. For the people that know a lot, they're usually pretty patient with going over the basics. For people that know a little, it'll be an introduction to some new vocabulary and some terminology that you might not be familiar with, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding about networks, and you'll learn that you actually use a lot of networks today that you didn't even think about. So we're going to talk about that too. Okay, so I'm just curious before we get started, if there's anybody that had any burning questions that they were hoping to get answered based on the dynamic, intro video they saw of me doing the class and everything. Anybody have anything that they're compelled? Okay, Betty, you've got, hey, thanks for raising your hand. That's great that you know how to do that in Zoom. Go ahead, Betty.
Yeah, even at my age, huh?
I didn't say anything. You said that yourself.
No, what I wanted to learn about today was VPNs.
VPN. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. We have a technology expert with us.
And hotspots, mobile hotspots.
Okay, we'll talk about hotspots. Since you asked about VPN, I'll mention it. I'm not a VPN expert. For those of you who don't know what Betty's just rattling off, these technology terms like they're second nature, right? VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. And it's a way to make your internet connection more secure if you feel you have the need for that. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about, I don't use one, but some people have heard about them and they like using them. Marge from our technical support, wave to everybody, Marge. In case you're having any technology difficulties, Marge is one of our team members that joins us at the beginning of all of our meetings. And to help you get started, if you send an email to help@getsetup.io, it's Marge or one of her other teammates that will help you with the issues regarding Zoom or getting on the meetings or even using the GetSetup website. And we're just adding so many classes all the time. It's great. We're just seeing a lot of participants. Anybody else have any network questions that they're hoping to get answered today? And Marge, you're not allowed to ask anything. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anybody else have anything that they're hoping to get answered?
I don't think this is going to get answered, but which is the best network to use and which do you get your money's worth?
Okay, well, a lot depends on where you're located. You mean by network, you mean your internet service provider?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it depends on where you're located. I actually used to run a small business, internet service business, so I learned a lot about networking and other types of things about that. And we're not going to use all of that information, but we'll talk about a few things. Okay, anybody else have any questions? Because I'm actually using an old technology called a pen and paper to write down your questions, because it helps me. There's nothing like a pen and paper to jot something down quick, is there? So it's a matter of choosing the right technology for the job. And that's really what technology is all about. Okay.
Yeah. Well, let me ask a question. Will you review how to connect your systems together so the networks can connect on all your devices?
We're going to talk a little bit about that and the devices that do that, and the different types of networks. I'm not sure if we'll see as we get into connection, the way things connect to networks, Janice, whether we answer that or not. If you have a question, I do watch chat. If you raise your hand or wave, I will pay attention to you. I watch the gallery in another window here too. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Share my screen here a little bit and talk about some network terminology, and we'll pause for questions periodically. So we're going to talk about home computer networks basics. And we are going to cover a lot of things about networks beyond maybe what you might think of as basics, but I want to just set the expectations there. For those of you who have been on GetSetup sessions before, you know we're a training organization. We might mention some products or services that are in the classes, but we don't sell anything. We don't receive any commissions or referral fees from anything. We're recording the session, so you can request a link to the recording. Give it about an hour, but if you send an email to help@getsetup.io, that'll work. You're going to get an email with some links to some places that I use to get advice on technology for me. Watching chat, and thank you all for muting your microphone. Everyone's doing a great job of Zoom etiquette. I'm very, very impressed with this group so far. Okay, all right. So we're going to learn some network ABCs. You're going to learn what networks are used for and why we use them. We're going to learn about routers and Wi-Fi a little bit more. And then we'll talk about some ways to solve problems. There's not a lot of ways to solve problems, but I can tell you what every technology support helpline will tell you what to do if you call them for technology support. And you probably know it already, but we'll see if people can guess that. And thanks for your questions. We'll talk about a few things, and more questions will come up, I'm sure. Okay, first question you probably had is, what is a network? Well, a computer network, a home computer network, consists of computers or devices. Some of these things like smart TVs and intelligent home device assistants, or I even have a smart washing machine and a smart dryer, although they aren't as smart as I want them to be. But all they do is tell me the load's done. I really want them to switch the load for me and fold the laundry, but they're not that smart yet. But these things all connect by wires and cables, okay? Or they connect wirelessly using radio waves. All radio waves are radio waves, even though they might be set aside. The Federal Communications Commission sets aside certain frequencies for like AM radio and satellite radio and FM radio and television, and they set aside some frequencies for computer networks, which is the Wi-Fi that we use. You might remember when you wanted to move some files from one computer to another computer, you put a floppy disk in your computer, you copied it, and you walked over to the other computer and you opened up the floppy file on the floppy disk, right? Well, networks eliminate that. You might remember, maybe you still have a library of VHS or beta videotapes in your home. But these days we stream our video from places like Netflix and Amazon and other places. When you visit web pages, you are requesting a web page from somewhere on the internet, and it's sending back a file to you. So all of these things eliminate the need for physical media and give us the ability to communicate with people all over the world, because the world is networked together very effectively. Music, CDs, things like that, we're just changing. I don't know if you remember, anybody remembers 8-track tapes? I mean, if you want to give there was a little chat session going around our local over 55 community about stuff that our kids probably don't know. And one was, the milkman that leaves the milk in front of the door. Another was 8-track tapes. This stuff changes, and it changes fast. That's part of what I think is a challenge for us to keep up with. You are an experienced network user already. Your telephone is a network. The fact that you could, even on old rotary phones, you could dial a number and somehow or another that system connected you with a person with a phone on the other end, and you could talk with them. That's a network. Okay, you network two people together. Cellular systems are networks. Your smartphone that connects up to cellular and lets you use the cellular network to communicate. Electricity, as you learned and read about. Anybody from Texas here today? But I mean, they learned that a network really needs to be very reliable, didn't they, in Texas, and has to be ready for things that break down. But electricity is a network. And then we've got our old radio and television, wireless, even though we might get our TV over cable, but we can still get it wirelessly. Those are wireless networks that exist. So networks already. They allow things to move. I mean, the fact that I know when my parents first got a TV, like, it was just amazing that you could actually sit in front of this box and you could pick up this visual image from somewhere else in the country. When you think about that, it's pretty amazing. But now we take that for granted, right? Okay, data networks are a little bit different. There's Ethernet, which can be either by cable or wirelessly by Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is simply the wireless version of Ethernet, but it's mostly what we use a lot of the time. Not that many people use cables, but it doesn't matter whether you connect Ethernet by cable or Wi-Fi, it's technically the same network. Bluetooth is a network. Bluetooth is commonly used to connect your smartphone to your hands-free settings in your car, or if you have a fitness device like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch and you want to connect it to your phone, it uses Bluetooth. And Bluetooth was designed by Nokia out of Norway to connect earpieces to cell phones, so people didn't need to use a wire or a cable. And so Bluetooth was designed to work very close to each other, okay? Another data network is the global positioning system that gives us directions. It's the satellites. Think of your smartphone. There's my smartphone. Your smartphone is able to communicate with a satellite up in the sky and find its location by using our global positioning system network. So that's another type of network. And what has to happen is that the antennas have to communicate, or the cabling has to be the right cable. If you try and plug a telephone cable, if you still have a telephone with a cable, you try and plug it into an Ethernet port, the cables aren't the same, the connectors aren't the same. And so the cabling, and the same thing with Wi-Fi, you have to have the same antenna on both sides for a network to communicate. So your phone or your tablet or your computer or your router at your home all have antennas that allow them to communicate with different things. Your smartwatch and your phone both have Bluetooth antennas, so they can communicate with Bluetooth. So each one of these is a different network, and it gives us a lot of connectivity. And it's just amazing that it works most of the time. I don't know how many of you have ever had a chance to visit a data center, but they're fantastic to visit once, and then you get tired of them. But it's a facility for computers. If you wanted to know physically, where is the cloud? This is where the cloud is. The cloud consists of data centers all over the world. It's a facility, a building. It could be a high rise. It could be a warehouse. It could be something built underground. They typically don't tell you what they are because they don't want people to know that that building's filled from floor to ceiling with computers. And all these computers do things. They run our maps. They do our cloud storage. They hold our music. They have websites. All the computers are doing lots of different things, but they're all in this facility called a data center, and it's usually connected to the internet, very, very high-speed connections, and usually they're owned by companies or organizations, and they're located around the world. So the internet uses data centers, and typically a company like Amazon or Google or Apple or Microsoft or even Facebook and governments and universities or corporations, they'll have more than one data center for their information. So the internet is designed so that one data center goes down, there's backups called redundancy that take over automatically. And when the people that designed the internet, and it was designed by the Department of Defense with a group called ARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, they designed it to be resilient. So if any time any one connection got broken, another connection could pick up the traffic so that it works really well, even if one part of it breaks down and needs to, or it has a disaster of some sort. But that's where your cloud stuff is. It's in data centers all over the world. Okay, some internet terms are these. These are helpful terms to understand because they explain a lot about how the internet works. The internet's a collection of computers. Some of these computers could be an internet in a data center. Some of these computers could be in your home. When you're connected to the internet, you are part of the internet. And there's this addressing scheme on the internet called URLs. It's kind of like the postal system in a way. When you address a letter to someone, or you want to mail a package to somebody through our postal service, which is kind of a network for delivering physical products, physical items, right? You need to put the person or the business name, their street number, their street name, and their city and state and zip code, right? We all kind of know that. And then if you drop it off with the right amount of postage at a post office, they will deliver it to your destination for you. Do you know if it went by truck or van or airplane, or who actually, what route it took to get there? No, but the post office routes your package and gets it to the destination. And if you have a return address on it, the person who gets the package could say, oh, I want to send a thank you note for a birthday gift or something, and I'm going to send it to this person's address because I have their return address. Well, traffic on the internet needs the same type of tool. It needs to have an address for the destination and a return address to get it back to the sender if it needs to. So when you type in a URL like google.com, and that's what a URL is, it's an address for a website, or you type in getsetup.io to go to the web. Your laptop, desktop, smartphone, whatever, sends a message out through your internet service provider. They carry it out to the internet and it gets routed to the final destination because it has an address. All these URLs have addresses on the internet. Now, computers like numbers better than letters and characters. And so these characters, these URLs are converted into IP addresses. And every computer on the internet has an IP address. Your internet service provider assigns one to you for your home, and your router gives out addresses to each of your devices whenever you get on. When you go to a Starbucks or a library or other place that has a different Wi-Fi network, you get a new IP address. But because you have an IP address, when you send a message out over the internet to say, visit a website or watch a video, the web knows how to get it back to you specifically. And these days it happens so fast that we don't even, we get frustrated if it takes more than a few seconds, right? Because we want it to happen so fast. But that's the addressing scheme of the internet. It actually has a way for a message to get from one place to the other and get it back and get a message back again. And that's how it works. And so we're constantly sending and receiving messages instead of in a box, which we might take to the post office. What's in the message is maybe a web page or maybe a video, or maybe a song we want to listen to, or maybe an email. Those are just what's in the package. That's all it is. But the internet is a way of packaging things up and sending them all over the place. It's kind of amazing when you send an email to somebody, that it gets to them, doesn't it? Right? And if they read it, hopefully they can open it up and send it back. So that's a little bit of the technology of the internet. Any questions about that you might have? When you think of it just like an electronic post office, I think it makes a lot more sense, and it's a lot more understandable. But technology people like to make things much more technical, but it makes more sense if it's under something you understand, I think. Okay, so let's take a look at Ethernet a little bit, because that's mostly what we use for our home networks. It is a computer industry standard. In the computer industry, there's lots of businesses like Google and IBM and Hewlett Packard and Dell and Amazon and everybody, and they all get together and they set industry standards for certain technology. And they set an industry standard for Ethernet, and they have a standard for wired Ethernet and a standard for wireless Ethernet called Wi-Fi. And some of these things are regulated by the governments around the world. A few things, like for Wi-Fi, for example, since it's a radio signal, the Federal Communications Commission says that, okay, if you have a Wi-Fi signal and you build a device that broadcasts it, you can only supply it with so much power. Okay, if you have a radio station on AM radio, you have a limit to how much power you can broadcast on that antenna. And our Wi-Fi devices have a limit to how much power they can send over the radio wave. Okay, so it's different for every type of wireless technology, but that power determines how far the signal can go before it gets too weak to be usable. Okay, and that's what happens with wireless, is that every wireless technology has a range before which it starts to deteriorate and can't be used anymore. Wired actually has ranges as well. There is a limit of how long an Ethernet cable you can physically have, and it's just gotten longer and longer and longer over the years. I don't actually know the limit anymore. But it's something, and you can actually send Ethernet messages over power lines, over your electrical power system as well. You can send Ethernet over a cable network, or fiber, or so. There's all these different industry standards to make sure that it works across one another. We see in our homes are this type of Ethernet cable and Wi-Fi, or what's also commonly referred to as a hotspot. So Wi-Fi, like any type of radio, has to have a broadcaster and a receiver. And our phones and our laptops and our home routers, they're all capable of both broadcasting and receiving on Wi-Fi, so they can send and receive messages. It's a two-way communications. And it just means that both devices have to have a Wi-Fi antenna. So if you have a computer, or like I've got a washing machine and it has a Wi-Fi antenna built into it, I can connect it to my Wi-Fi network. And usually everything connects up to a router as kind of a central hub. And then the router redirects traffic to other places and access it. That's what a router does. It routes the internet traffic that comes in and goes out. Your home router looks like this typically. Okay, and they're common devices. Okay, and they're vary, but sometimes your internet service may provide you with one, and sometimes they have both a router and a modem combined in one box. The modem is a type of technology that converts one type of connection, like in this case, Ethernet, to say a cable or fiber. So some homes, depending on your internet service, might have a combined modem / router, whereas some homes might have a separate modem that's connected by Ethernet to the router and a separate router box. Okay, so I see Elaine, Betty, you've got your hand up, is that right? Go ahead.
I just never understood the difference between the router and the modem. I was just wondering, could you just repeat that one more time?
Sure, sure. A modem is like a translator. Okay, modems translate one technical communications language to a different one. So if your cable company, for example, do you have a cable internet or a fiber?
A cable.
Cable, okay. It's a different type of connector, isn't it? It's a cable, coaxial cable,
Right.
and they can run Ethernet over it, but it doesn't use this type of standard Ethernet cable. It uses a coaxial cable. So to convert this type of connector to a coaxial cable, they need a modem. A modem converts the types of connections. And so one way goes in one way, comes out with a different type of connector. A router allows you to route the internet traffic from one device to another and connect Ethernet connections to it. And sometimes, as I mentioned, they're one box, and sometimes there's two separate boxes.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so most routers have standard Ethernet ports, usually about 4, and they have these antennas for Wi-Fi. Okay, so they might have one antenna, they might have 2, they might have 3. Different antennas sometimes give them the ability to broadcast a little stronger signal a little further away. But they are broadcasting and receiving. So you can connect up by Ethernet, or you can connect up by Wi-Fi, and you are connected to the same network. It's just you're using wireless and one you're using wired. That's the only difference. Wi-Fi typically works on 2 frequencies. It's licensed by the Federal Communications to work on 2.4 gigahertz and on 5 gigahertz, just like radio stations have a frequency, 1040, 1120, that's their frequency. You know, Wi-Fi has these 2 frequencies. And you might have noticed that sometimes when you're standing near your microwave oven, that sometimes your Wi-Fi signal has a little interference. That's because microwaves also use 2.4 gigahertz, and they can sometimes interfere. And that's why they came out with 5 gigahertz many years ago, when wireless routers became common in the homes. Usually your wireless router works for a really long time. But if you are if you have one that's more than, say, 4 years old, you should talk to your internet service about seeing if they can upgrade you to a newer model. You might be paying a fee for it, or you can buy your own and connect it to your modem if you want to, and set up your own router network. And they've gotten a lot easier to set up these days. They used to be really hard to set up, which is why nobody wanted to do it. Now the setup instructions that come with them are 2 or 3 steps and give people a lot more help to doing it. And if certain retailers like Costco, they have a helpline for technology that you buy from them. And so they give you some capabilities for that too. One other thing about routers is if you get it from your internet service, they will typically give it a name called the SSID. That's the technology. And so when you open up your smartphone or you scan for networks, you'll see a lot of different network names. Each router or hotspot, because they're both the same thing, has a name. And that's what it's broadcasting. It broadcasts its name so that if you know the password to that particular network, you can log in by entering your password and connect to that network. Most networks do have passwords, although some of them in public places may not require a password, but most home networks will require you to enter the password. But your device, your laptop, your smartphone, your tablet, your computer, they'll remember the password so that if you leave home, come back after a shopping trip or whatever, it'll automatically connect up to the network again. Or if you go to visit someone, when that becomes easier to do and you visit them, your device will remember that network and you won't have to enter the password again. So most devices will remember the passwords here automatically. Any questions about that? And I'm going to try and get my phone on here, and we'll show you like what's around me and how I connect up to a network. If you need help with your router and it's supplied to you by your internet service provider, call them for help to solve any issues with it, because they're providing the equipment to you. Now, this is basically how your connections are going to work. You're going to have a device, computer, laptop. It's going to connect wirelessly or by cable to your router. Your router connects up to your internet service provider's modem, and they take you out to the internet. And then stuff from the internet gets pulled back and sent to your device. And so it's really easy to connect up to just a network called SSIDs. That's what they call it. And I honestly don't remember what SSID stands for anymore. But it's just basically the network name of what's nearby you. Enter the password. You know, sometimes you'll see a little lock on your password, and then you can do that. So I'm going to try plugging in my phone right now and see if I can show you a little bit of this network connection capability. I have an iPhone, but they work pretty similarly on other phone devices as well. And so let me try sharing my phone screen and you'll see what's around me. There we go. Hey, that worked pretty good. I like it when technology works fast. So I'm going to tap on settings here. Usually it's in settings where you find network information. And when I see settings, I'm going to look down here. I want to find Wi-Fi, okay, because that connects me to my internet. And I'm connected to, my router's name is Bobology, right? You can give it, I gave it a fun name, and it says 5G. So if I tap on that, my Wi-Fi antenna is going to scan for other networks nearby me. So here's a neighbor's network, Direct FP, Fire TV, Helen 2G, and I can see that they've got locks on them, Netgear 16, Netgear 98. These are the SSIDs that are being broadcast. And if I knew any of my neighbors' passwords, I could tap on that network and type in the password and join their network. Okay, so it'll scan all the time for you. It'll scan and let you know what's nearby whenever you tap Wi-Fi. So it's pretty convenient. It works pretty well as long as you know the password. So if you're in a different location other than home, you might need to get that a password, but that's all you really need to do it. So it's pretty convenient. We take it for granted, but those are the things you need to be able to do. Okay, so let me show you some other things here. Some of you may want to extend the range of your network. I don't know if anybody ever go to a part of their home or area where all of a sudden their Wi-Fi signal doesn't seem real strong or anything like that. Yeah, it happens sometimes. Well, you can extend the range of your network. There's 3 common ways to do it, depending on your budget and how much coverage you need. I have a a pretty small place, and my router covers all the range except for one room. And so I used this thing called a power line range extender. It has two pieces to it. One piece plugs into an electrical outlet near your router, and you connect an Ethernet cable directly to one of those Ethernet connectors on your router. Then you take the other device and you plug it into an outlet in the room where you want to extend your network. And it has an Ethernet cable that comes out of it. And more expensive models have Wi-Fi as well. And it'll extend your network using the power line in your home and making it into an Ethernet network, because you have two devices that will let you do that on it. These are, a pair of these are about $80 to $100. It's great if you want to get your network really, really reliably from one room to another, okay? It's really dependable. It's really good because it's using a cable. It's actually using your electrical wiring in your home as an Ethernet cable. It's able to do that. And you can put on as many of them as you want to. Okay, once you have one next to your router, your whole home electrical wiring becomes an Ethernet network. So you could get additional devices here if you wanted to. But there's two other ways to do it. If you only need to get Wi-Fi extended from your router, say your router signal is getting weak in one room, or you might want to see if you can extend it out to your garage or upstairs. This is about a $35 to $50 device. It's called a Wi-Fi range extender. And that lets you, as long as it can pick up a signal from your router, it then rebroadcasts it again. It's like a booster. It rebroadcasts the signal that from your router, and it makes it easy to extend your range to an area of your home that might not get coverage. A little more expensive, in the $180, I'd say, to $200 range, are what are called whole home Wi-Fi coverage. This will cover 3,000, up to 4,000 square feet. They're called a mesh network. They come as like a package of 3 devices. Amazon sells one called Eero. Costco sells one made by Google. Best Buy probably sells, a couple of different ones as well. You can find them at Staples. You can find all of these at Staples, at Best Buy, at Amazon, at Costco. They're pretty common. You might not find these two, the smaller ones, at Costco, but you'll find mesh networks there. I checked the other day as well. And the whole mesh network basically sets up multiple hotspots all on the same network in your home, so that you just walk around your home or even a small office, and it'll just automatically pick up the strongest signal nearby you, whatever that signal is. They're gotten really easy to set up. They have apps that you use on your smartphone to set them up and connect them, and people really say that they're all really great to use. And like I say, I've used all 3 of them, in different situations, and they can help you extend your range. Now, one of the things that there was a question about was what's called a VPN. I'm going to close this for a second and answer the question. A virtual private network, which is what VPN stands for, it takes that internet message, the box that you were mailing, or the envelope that you were mailing through the post office. It takes that information and encrypts it. I don't know if you've ever ordered anything on Amazon, and Amazon says, hey, the contents of this package will be revealed on the outside of the box. Sometimes if it's, a box of, the outside of the box tells you what's on the inside. If it's like say it's a toolbox, or you're getting ordered some tools and it says, Stanley or Delta, or if you're ordering, a vacuum cleaner and it says Eureka or Dustbuster, on the box so people can see what's inside the box from the outside of the box. Well, think of a VPN as the electronic equivalent of wrapping that in a plain brown wrapper, so nobody knows what's inside it. A VPN is designed to make sure that the messages that go to and from people on the internet are private and encrypted so that no one can tell what that message is, even if they happen to intercept it in some way. So who uses VPNs? Well, I have a friend that works for a satellite company, and his connection from his laptop is he has to log into a VPN first, and then he gets connected to his workplace. Okay, so all of his workplace connections are VPN because the company doesn't want any company messages to be intercepted over the internet. For the average person, a VPN is not critical. I mean, when we go and use websites that are secure, they have the symbol HTTPS in front of them. That means that website's secure and it's encrypted. So when we're doing that, when we use Zoom, part of the problem, Zoom, I don't know if many of you used Zoom early during the pandemic lockdowns, but at first they had some security issues and they had to do things. They did encrypting. So when we're on a Zoom meeting, our video and our chat and all of our information is encrypted over a private network by Zoom. So that's, I mean, some people are very concerned about their communications, but most communications are pretty secure on the internet already. Okay. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to show you is I want to show you how to tell you how fast your internet connection is. You know, when you get a service from an internet service provider, they say you'll get blazing fast speeds, right? And lots of times you want to know why in the world your connection's not working right. Well, there's a couple of things you can do to check it out. First, you want to be a little bit of a diagnostic detective. If your connection is working okay on, say, your smartphone, but not on your computer, the problem is probably with your computer. If more than one device works well, then it's probably not your network or router, it's probably your device. And it's always a good idea to power cycle whatever device you've got. If it's a printer, and sometimes my printer just loses its internet connection. And what I do is I just power it down and power it back up and it gets connected again. Okay, so sometimes it's as simple as that. Lately, it's been doing pretty well, but every so often it'll forget, something will go wrong. And I don't know why. I could look into it, but it's easier just to power it off and power it back on. Powering your smartphone or your computer on or off will sometimes fix network connections, oddly enough. And then you might have to power cycle your router and maybe your modem. If you think you've got a problem that multiple devices are having problems with their connections, that might help you. The other problem that people complain about a lot is they say that my internet speed's really slow. Well, that again is a little bit of a diagnostic, problem. Where is the speed slow? Is it slow from your phone to your router, or is it slow from the router out to the internet? Speed testing tools can help out. So lots of times you may not have realized it, but if you just had one person working out of the house back a year ago, February, they probably weren't using that much internet speed. But if all of a sudden now you've got 3 or 4 people in the house and they're all, one person streaming Netflix and one person's working on a home office and another person's playing online games, or another person's doing Zoom meetings, you're placing more demands on your internet connection. You really don't need a lot of that, and one person like streaming Netflix might use a certain amount of speed, what's called bandwidth. But when you start adding up people or devices, that can add things up. And that's where knowing what your internet speeds are is really helpful. And so we'll take a look at one tool I use. There's several tools, and your internet service will say, gee, you really ought to use our speed test, but this is somebody called speedtest.net. I'll put it in chat, and you'll get this link in the email as well. They're one of several. They have apps for your smartphones. They have, and you can see they have a lot of ads, and that's how they support themselves, is with ads. But your internet service provider, mine is Spectrum, for example, they might have a speed test capability as well. So this one's been around a long time. They're all pretty much the same. And so if I go to their website or I opened up the app on my smartphone, I just click on go, and it's going to go connect, check things out. First thing it tests is something called ping. And that's how long in milliseconds or microseconds. I think it's milliseconds, how long it takes a message to get from me to my router. And 10 is really fast. And then it tells me how fast my download speeds are. And for Netflix and Zoom, you need about 8 megabits per second. So I've got 10 times the speed I need for doing most anything. You can even do things, and it tells me I have an upload speed. I upgraded my plan, and generally what you'll find is that most internet service providers will give you 100 megabits per second download speeds, or 200, and they say it'll vary depending on the time of day. You should usually be getting at least 50 any time of the day, but upload speeds will be slower because they're more expensive. And so for me, when I send a message out to the internet, I am using upload speed. And so for most plans, they'll be like 5 to 10 megabits per second. But because I do a lot of Zoom classes, I upgraded so that I have a pretty fast connection, because it's taking video, it's taking sound, and it's sending it from me to Zoom's data center somewhere, right? Because we don't know where they are. And then it's sending it back out to you. So Janice is wondering how I got, the screen I'm showing you is a website that's called speedtest.net. And you're going to get a link in the email that follows up, and you're going to get. So what I did, if I go back and refresh the screen again, this is the home where it started, and it says go. And if I click go, it'll run the test again. Okay, and it's just running the test again. It's not going to be much different than it is. But if you're finding you get, say, a dramatically different speed from, say, your smartphone and your computer, then you might, want to take a look, might want to power cycle one of the devices, or power cycle your router, and check and see if that improves your speeds. That's usually the first step. But you can see, I mean, the time of day, minute by minute, there'll be some variation in speeds bit by bit. So you typically won't notice that much difference from one to the next. Then it shows you the results here. Shows you my ping, my download, more than adequate for anything I need. My upload, more than adequate for anything I need. And so those are the things that you want to check for when you're looking at your speeds and checking them out. Okay, so we've gotten a little bit smarter about networks. So we have a little bit of time here for some Q&A, which I always like to plan. So what types of questions do you have about your home computer network that I might be able to answer for you? Go ahead, Mercy. Is it Merci? Like,
It's Murphy.
okay, Mercy. Okay.
Somebody asked about a hotspot, and I'm curious about that too. What does that really mean?
A hotspot is just another name for a router. A
Ah.
router is well, kind of, okay. The router is the physical box that broadcasts the hotspot. Okay, so when you say where is there a hotspot, you're asking if there's a wireless router nearby, is all you're really asking for. And so in places like libraries and coffee shops and other places, they'll have hotspots. Your router in your home is really also a hotspot. It's broadcasting a signal. It's just that one term is sometimes used to indicate it's the broadcast. Another term is just used to indicate the physical box, but they both pretty much mean the same thing. And you might get a real computer savvy person that'll pick away at it if you do it differently, but they basically mean the same type of thing.
Okay. The reason I'm asking because I was confused about a hotspot and somebody's router. For instance, I use the Wi-Fi where I live here. We have a internal Wi-Fi, but when I'm away from here, it will say connect to infinity or whatever. So if I connect to infinity, does that mean that I have to sign up for their service, or is that considered a hotspot?
Well, if that's the broadcast, the hotspot or router that's broadcasting its network name, okay? Wherever you go, wherever you travel, you'll pick up a network name for a Wi-Fi signal. And if it shows that it has a lock, then you have to have a password for that network. So if you needed to get the password, you might have to sign up for them.
So do you have to pay for that, or is that a free thing?
Usually, yes. It depends on now, and sometimes like AT&T has things that are available for you to use, and that you can use remote hotspots they have around. But if you're not typically paying, it's only like public libraries or restaurants or coffee shops or hotels that typically offer hotspots for free. If you want to use anybody's network, you usually have to pay for it some way.
All right, thanks.
So Elaine, you have a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll get you, okay?
All right, I have a question.
Oh,
Hello.
Jerry,
Hello?
let me get Elaine first, okay? And then I'll get you, Jerry, okay?
Okay, fine.
She had a message in chat. That's all. That's why I'm just being,
Okay.
thank you. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great, because I am very, very new at all this. And I just want to thank you so much. But I wanted to find out if you or anyone know, where can I go for some computer lessons? Because this has helped me tremendously. And also the second question was, I wanted to know what type of computer do you suggest that would be good for me?
Well, it's hard to make a recommendation on a specific computer, but most people use Windows. If there's a lot of help available for Windows computers on the web. Most learning these days is on the web, but Microsoft has a lot of help available. Are you by any chance a Costco member, Elaine?
No, I'm not.
Okay, if there's a Costco nearby you, Costco has a great support plan for all of their technology. So it's worth it to think about becoming a member because they have a lot of support available. And Microsoft Windows would probably be the best approach to get, for a computer. And like I say, online, I would take advantage of YouTube and a lot of other things. And we do offer a lot of courses through GetSetup. We're always adding more all the time.
Okay.
It's a matter of, I learned ballroom dancing about 3 years ago, and I didn't know my left foot from my right foot. And so, but after going to dozens and dozens of lessons, I finally learned where my left foot was and where my right foot was. So just be patient. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Jerry, let me get your question. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you off. I just wanted to get Elaine's.
No, that's all right. I'm retired. Listen, I have AT&T, and we moved here, and we have two computers on the other side of the house, and I was getting bad reception. So I fixed it by buying one of those extenders that connect to the household wiring. And I brought it into my room, but I attached another router to it. And that's the one that these computers are using. My question is, I'm a little confused because I actually now have two routers, and if I look on my system, I see them both, but I connect to the one that's locally connected in my computer room. Is my signal going through two routers, or is my AT&T router just routing my signal through it? Or am I actually going through two routers?
What'll happen, let's see if I can draw this for you, okay, is that if you have an AT&T router here, I'm just going to draw this quickly, okay? Okay, if that's your AT&T router, AT&T, I have to draw with a mouse, so it's not good. And let's just imagine this is wired or wireless. Here's this router number 1, and this is router number 2, okay? Okay, so if you have 3 routers, AT&T is going out to the internet, okay? This
Okay,
is,
well, AT&T is the only one I have, okay? And by the television comes in, I have fiber, so the television and the telephone and everything comes in to AT&T.
okay,
I don't actually have router 1, but router 2 is in my computer room.
okay, so router 2 is in your computer room, right? So everything's going from AT&T out to the internet through their router. This router
Correct.
is if you connect up to, say, a laptop or a smartphone or something else, you're connecting up to this router. It's going to your AT&T router, and that's sending it out to the internet.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, but you might have a different name for this router than for
Oh,
this.
I do.
Yeah, and that's what a mesh network solves. Is a mesh network gives everything the same network name, no matter where you are in the house. So you don't, because right now you're connecting to one router sometimes and another router another time, depending on which one you're closer to or using. But a mesh network creates one network for your whole house, which is why it's becoming so popular.
So a mesh network then would take a Wi-Fi signal from my AT&T and spread it throughout the entire
You basically place little mesh work
house.
all over the house, and you have one network for your whole house, as opposed to two separate. Because what you do is what people used to do to fix the problems when they they'd install a second router, but it has a different name. But mesh network eliminates that, creates one network name for everything in the house, makes life a lot simpler. Which
Okay,
is hopefully
that's
so you might, if you,
yeah, that's great. I'll check into that.
check into that. Now I'm going to send you some links to some places that you can get it. Okay. All right. Well, hey, we had a fun hour of learning about networking, didn't we? At least I hope you had fun, right? And hopefully a little smarter. Thank you, for your feedback. And, you can always get a copy of the recording with all the slides by sending an email to help@GetSetup. And if you have a chance to give me some feedback and you have any suggestions, please let us know. And I will see you hopefully soon at some other computer classes. Okay,
Thank
have
you.
a good day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.